And what's up, everybody? I'm back with another movie review. This is of It Chapter 2, released in 2019. Again, it's a sequel to the original It, or the first part of the new adaptation of It, which was released in 2017. It Chapter 2, released in 2019. And this part focuses on the adult section of the Stephen King novel, conveniently titled It, which was released back in the 80s, I believe. And so it focuses on the section of the adults. They come back to Derry, Maine. Mike, who had never left, notices that Pennywise has returned after his 27-year slumber and is back, and he recalls all of his other friends back to Derry, Maine to take down Pennywise once and for all. And it's a little bit longer of a movie, about a half an hour longer than the first one. And you know, a lot of people were not really having high expectations coming into this movie, because I think the people criticizing the 1990 version that the adult section was not as good as the kids section, and a lot of people thought the adult section of the book was not as good as the kids section of the book. So people not excited for a standalone version for the adults, and a lot of people think this isn't as good as the first one. I'll agree with them. I still thought it was a pretty solid movie, all considered. All things considered, I thought it was a pretty solid movie, but it does have some flaws that I like to talk about here. Again, I love to give some credit where credit is due. Like I said in the last one, I was going to credit Bill Skarsgård again. I think his name is Bill Skarsgård. I could be getting that wrong. Dude did excellent again as Pennywise here. He's like the one character that really didn't change in this movie, and he was excellent as always with the kills and the horror and the psychological terror. Did pretty good there. And again, we got some more. Again, with like the more drawn out stuff, but also a lot more of like the quick scareness too. I don't think he really made as many I don't want to say as many. I think it was about the same. He killed a couple of kids, and he killed an adult on camera, and then he ended up killing some others, but near the end of the movie. But I won't talk about that here. But anyway, I think a lot of people, when they watch this movie, one of the main complaints they had is there was too much comic relief in the movie, and I could see that coming. I could see why. This movie, when it comes to its scare factor, focuses more on the physical terror than the psychological terror. It focuses more on blood and gore and a lot of that stuff to get its point across, versus the first movie was more on the mental, and it was like the terror that you're supposed to feel, the fear that the kids feel, and you're supposed to hear the fear and feel it all throughout, instead of seeing like a bunch of blood and guts going everywhere. This movie focuses more on the blood and stuff like that, which I guess it's not a bad thing, but it's not, it's gross, obviously, which it's supposed to be. It does what it's supposed to do, but I think if they want to go for more, like, I think they were going for like a traditional horror movie, or they want for like terror. I think going for terror would have been better, but I think it just captured, I think it helped a little bit more. They use the gross stuff because they're growing up and stuff like that. I don't know exactly. They also had to go off the source material, which was a couple of big things that I don't think the producers were all too happy to do, but because with the source material they had to go off of, I think they had to do it. One was the Stan killing himself at the beginning of the movie because he didn't want to face Pennywise again. And the second was the killing of Eddie at the end of the movie by Pennywise. And I don't think the producers wanted to kill Eddie off, but I think they had to. Because that's how it goes in the book. And yeah, so that was hard to watch. Because it's not very often you see a character that's so established and so rooted in the movie die, especially that way. So that was a little. It sticks with you because it's not something you see every day. In movies in general, and also in horror movies. But so it was a little hard to stick with. But as far as portraying that, I thought they did a pretty good job of it. And as far as the characters reunion, also, and then getting the new terrors and stuff like that. This movie, along with focusing on gore, focuses a lot on nostalgia, flashbacks, and focusing on and really building off of the first part. And I think, for the most part, I thought it was okay. It did seem like it was a little, they overdid it a little bit, because at the beginning of the movie, there's a flashback, and there's a lot of flashbacks to when they're kids, and I don't think the flashbacks are bad, but they include some stuff that we don't like. If you hadn't read the book, or maybe even seen the 1990 version of this, I don't know. I've never seen the 1990 version, so I don't know if they include this in that. But one was like this like clubhouse thing. They call this like a huge like piece of the story. We don't see that at all in the first movie. And like Stan with the hairnets, we don't see those at all either. And they include one of those as like one of the artifacts to sacrifice for the ritual of Chud. Why, like, you couldn't have, it just seemed like if you weren't going to like establish it as a big piece for the characters in the first movie, why are you throwing them in and acting like they are in the second movie if you don't even establish them in the first movie? That kind of stuck with me. It just doesn't understand why that is. I mean, the flashbacks too, they don't even like just start, they don't even just like come on at the beginning of the middle of the movie. You know, you see most of the time the flashbacks will happen for the most part at the beginning and the middle of the movie. There might be one or two at the end, or like one big one, but like otherwise it's kind of like the main point. Not this movie. They go straight, they do flashbacks and like reminiscing and thinking of the past all throughout the movie. And for some people that might be a good thing. You know, if you really like the first movie and you want some hints of that coming back to you while watching this one, it could be a good thing. But for me, like, it doesn't really like make sense. Like, it seemed like to me they didn't really build on any new story other than them finding Pennywise again, and they didn't really build off of any new character development. They kind of just skidded. What happened between movies to me was the kids grew up, and then the adult version of them regresses back to how they were as kids, and then they again build off of that again in the second movie and finally grow up for good at the end of the second movie, instead of starting where they left off and then building on that. I know it's like for plot and everything and whatever. And I know, again, like I said in the first movie, like I said earlier in this and again in the first movie, they have source material that they have to build off of. And I think they did a pretty good job again. Like, I don't like, people say they did a pretty good job following the book, which not a lot of movies could say that if they followed a book. They like to change things, but I don't think they really changed a lot here. Especially again with the killing of Eddie and Stan. I don't think they wanted to do that. Producer specifically would have been their first choice to do, but they had to because the book said so. So I'm like glad they at least followed the book. But you know, there's a couple of things in there that those couple of things really didn't make sense to me. I don't understand it at all. As far as the adult actors being the kids or being the adult version of the kids in the movie, I thought they did pretty good, all things considered. The person who played Bev, I thought did pretty good. Bill did pretty good. Mike did great. I liked seeing him getting a more prominent role in this movie. Though, did he? I mean, he's the one who stays behind in Derry, and then, you know, he's like the big catalyst in kicking off this whole thing, but then they kind of push him to the side for the rest of the movie. I would have liked to see him get a little bit more of a focus on him, because we see a lot of the focus on Eddie and Richie and Bill and Bev, and even like Stan gets a little bit more than this guy does. Like, we don't even hear anything from Mike's perspective, barely nothing. It's barely anything. It's just, I feel like they kind of shoved him off to the side at the end, in the second half of the movie, which is weird. And I don't know. He's kind of, why would you set him up if you're just gonna throw him off to the side again? It didn't make any sense to me. But yeah, I think the characters, the actors did a good job. The kids who did play in this movie, of course, the kid actors came back to do flashback scenes for this movie. I thought they did an okay job. I thought they did as good a job as they could, given their situation. I thought the new kid actors playing this movie, I thought they did a pretty good job as well, especially the curly-haired boy. And of course, I said Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise did an amazing job, as always. So, I also like the Stephen King cameo. That was pretty cool too. So I really like that. I don't know if he cameos in a lot of like book to movie adaptations, but this one he did for It Chapter 2, and I thought he did a pretty good job of it. A little cool puns with the stuff there. So and a little bit, it was cool seeing some other like the smaller characters come back and getting like that flashback piece of it too. Again, they focus a lot on flashbacks in this movie. So, but overall, I thought it was a good 7 out of 10 probably for a rating. I still enjoyed the movie. It has a little bit more like a comic relief to it. There's a lot more of that. But there are still some heartfelt moments. And it still provides some terror and stuff like that. And it gets the closure that we want, and it follows the book pretty well, and that kind of thing. So, what can you say? I still think it's a solid movie. You watch the first part, you gotta kind of watch the second part, especially if you're a fan of the book. I would recommend watching it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. How does it compare to the adult part in the book? How does it compare to the adult part in the 1990 series? Or is it like the one movie or the miniseries or whatever? I don't fucking know. How does it feel as a sequel to the first one? How does it feel as a movie? I'd love to hear all your thoughts about that in the comment section down below. And that's going to do it for this movie review of It Chapter 2. Stay tuned for much more amazing content coming to you. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Goodbye.